Good morning and welcome to Wonderlic Malik's new media studio. My name is Jason Moore, and today I'm leading a panel to talk about cybersecurity, access to industrial networks for workers that are practicing social distancing due to the COVID-19. Joining me today is Mark Ream. Mark has 35 years of experience in OT and IT network infrastructure. He will walk us through the challenges that we face in enabling these remote working conditions for automation professionals. First, a little bit about Wonderlic Malik. Wonderlic Malik is an automation-focused engineering company that has 35 locations, almost 500 employees, and 35 years of experience to help you succeed in your automation projects. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce Mark, who's going to be our main presenter today. Mark brings 35 years of IT experience. He's worked with OT. He's got quite the experience, and we're lucky to have him on the team. Mark, go ahead and continue telling us about yourself and what you're going to present.
Thank you, Jay. So all of us are feeling the pinch of the COVID challenge. How do we do our roles working from home instead of in the traditional office? For some roles, that's easier than others for anyone whose work can easily be taken off site. But how about automation networks that are traditionally isolated for good security? How do we help those folks do their very important jobs in critical industry without compromising security? So one approach that we might take is to look to the IT department that already has the knowledge and the tools of how to do remote access successfully and create a layered design to keep good security down to that automation network while leveraging the tools that we're already familiar with. So Secure Network 101, most cases this piece is already in place. No direct connections or trust between the business LAN and the OT LANs. By trust there, we mean Active Directory trust. Clear separate islands of authentication and identity management and segregated network traffic. Best practice calls for a DMZ in between and that the firewalls are locked down to deny by default. We only allow ports or services through where there's a clear business need and it's restrictive. Oh, and without saying, no internet access directly from the automation LAN, that's handled through the business LAN. So what might that look like visually? There's our business LAN at the top, a good firewall connection out to the internet, a DMZ between it and the automation LAN at the bottom, and the appropriate deny all firewall rules at every level. So how do we build those layers of access? Well, one good way to do it is a lot like how you would approach a medieval castle. You know, first you got to get across the moat. And then you come up to the main gate, which really isn't the main gate, it's just the outer gate. When you get inside that, you're held in a holding pen before you get to the goodies inside. That's kind of how we're building the layers of access in our network here. The first checkpoint is the business LAN. I need to be who I say I am, and I need to be able to prove I'm me on a trusted device before I can gain access to that first gate. Anyone who doesn't have a member computing device could still access cloud-attached services such as SharePoint, Outlook, Office 365, things that are already designed to be secure through cloud connection. That's the business LAN. Once I get there, I have to clear that checkpoint before I can be authenticated into the automation LAN. And there, for direct connected computers, we only allow those for on-premise devices. Everything else has got to go through the business LAN and be authenticated first. So let's say I've accessed the business LAN successfully. I then access the automation resources through some sort of thin client technology, typically Microsoft Remote Desktop Services, published applications, and the like. Those exposed through a cloud methodology in the DMZ, access to the resources that I have legitimate roles to manipulate. And then finally, we propose restricting file access and transfer with a secure file transfer protocol server. This allows segregated control and logging. So particularly in regulated environments like life sciences, where we might be subject to GMP rules, we can clearly show what was transferred and who did it and when it took place. So here's a conceptual of that process. Again, our drawing from previously, we're going to show how that remote user might access the LAN. First step is to authenticate into the business LAN. I need to have a computer that has a certificate showing I'm a member of that business LAN. After I've done that, I not only present my credentials that validate me in Active Directory at that domain level, but best practice is to have some sort of multi-factor authentication in addition to password security. Let's say that it sends me a text to my cell phone to confirm that it's really me knocking on the door. That gets me to the business LAN. Now we're going to talk about passing to the DMZ and how I access those automation resources. So there I present my credentials through the cloud or through the web-based remote desktop gateway. It's going to prompt me for my credentials in that automation LAN. Once I've presented those credentials, I can get to my remote desktop session or my application, like say a SCADA dashboard, that would allow me access to those automation resources. Finally, file access. By using a secure file transfer protocol server against my credentials, I can move files in and out of that automation domain to known locations and logging that traffic. Finally, if we don't want to take the stick-built approach, some manufacturers do offer a turnkey package that streamlines this process. Those features are going to vary widely based on the manufacturer, and we do recommend that automation advisors like us, Wonderlic Malik, could help you explore the offerings there and see what's a good fit for your business. So what are our key takeaways of how to build a secure stick-built remote access solution for automation? First one is to use the tools you already have. That skill set probably exists in your IT department. Well-known tools like access management, VPN for accessing from offsite, multi-factor authentication, they already do that day in and out. So let's leverage their skills and tools to help with this. Again, good network discipline, keeping separate business LANs and a DMZ between that and the OT LAN, and deny all firewall policies. Layers of access. We need to get to that business LAN first. We've passed that checkpoint, then we access the OT LAN. And then finally, we use remote desktop and secure file transfer to move files in and out of that domain. Strong identity management is critical throughout the process, that we only allow member computers access to the business LAN, and we require credentials in both domains, in the business and in the automation domain, and that I am granted access to resources in the automation domain based on least privilege and the role that I'm to fulfill. Back to you, Jay.
Thanks, Mark. We've got a nice panel assembled here. We've got Bradley Dunbar, IT OT professional, Bruce Powell, IT OT, and Oscar. And some of them, Bradley and Bruce, actually had the opportunity to go to the Idaho National Labs Industrial Control Network Penetration Testing School. And I think some of the things that we covered here were pertinent to their experience there. I think both of them were on the blue team, which means they were the team trying to protect the industrial control network, and the red team was trying to penetrate it. And I think from their experiences, I think both of them have a unique thing that brings up some of Mark's points. I believe Bradley had many unsecured network access points through the idea of people putting unmanaged switches on the network, unmanaged connections to the outside world, and really an infrastructure discipline issue. And we'll get him to talk a little bit about that. And then Bruce, the penetration that they successfully got him on was through an FTP site instead of an SFTP site. So they're both relevant into semi-real world simulations that were conducted at the Idaho National Labs. And Oscar probably has some cloud and enterprise advice with regards to this. Bruce, why don't you tell us about secure FTP?
Yeah, so without giving too much away about the red team, blue team challenge, for those of you that do end up going, just think about what you yourself might have on an FTP server for a file share for your employees. You may have VPN access, you may have files with passwords in them, you may have secure documentation that you really only want your employees to have access to. And so at least during my time there, that was one of the things that really got us is they had set up an FTP server, and the red team was able to get into the FTP server because it was just regular old FTP. It had VPN access files. Those VPN access files had the pre-shared keys. There was a text file that had the VPN password in it, and they were able to just VPN in. So just one unsecure place in your network can translate into two unsecure places in your network if it's set up incorrectly. And so you've really got to be careful about how you file share with your employees, that you only use secure means to share, especially access critical information such as passwords or VPN, pre-shared keys, that kind of thing. Otherwise, somebody else gets a hold of it, and they're going to have less helpful intent than your employees when they get a hold of it.
That's really good insight, Bruce. From a standpoint of setting up a secure file transfer, do any of our panel members have some recommendations or some lessons learned that they can share?
So I can talk to that, Jay. I had a recent experience at a pharmaceutical client. So they were regulated to good manufacturing practice. And the way they implemented SFTP is they set up the infrastructure with defined from and to locations. So there was a folder on the business side and a folder on the automation network side. And then they carefully managed access management by role to who could get in and transfer those files. So there was good logging and review of that. So they know where the files came and went. They know who did the change, and they know when it took place because it's all in the log. And I might add, they weren't publishing documents in those locations that could hurt them, like lists of passwords to the VPN and so forth. That was all kept off the network.
Excellent insight, Mark. Bradley, your time in the Idaho National Labs, you had some issues with your blue team defense based on network infrastructure that was not documented. Can you talk to the group and the panel a little bit about that?
During our experience, we found that we had hidden wireless access points and hidden switches that the vendor had left in place before they left, and they were able to use, they got in through the open firewall and were able to access those devices, and were able to create multiple connections to pretty much every machine in the production development or production area off those two devices that they had planted in the process.
I would think that's much more common than we actually think. I think a lot of companies get vendor skids or appliances that are kind of shrink wrapped, and then to support those, they allow the vendors access. And then before long, someone else cross connects the networks. So all the technology in the world is great, but it's really a multi-layered approach, with practices being a very integral part of cybersecurity.
And Jay, I'd like to comment to that. This is Mark again. I'd like to comment to that as well. Common focus is to grant access to the network and to the directory. It's less common for people to have good discipline about doing reviews. And I think everybody's security framework talks about periodic reviews of access management and make sure that things are pruned out that are old or no longer should be in place. And this includes not only accounts and account security, but old devices as well. I would recommend that be done on a 6-month basis at minimum in a validated network.
Pivoting over to Oscar. Oscar, from your time with cloud and enterprise.
The growth of edge devices and IIoT challenges traditional security models. This challenge is augmented as networks expand into new ecosystems, such as multi-cloud, mobility, etc., complicating the security aspect considerably. Data exchange between OT and IT systems needs special attention as well. The implicit deny all philosophy still applies in this new scenario. Best practice is to leverage secure protocols like MQTT over TLS, for example, to move data between MES and ERP layers. When exchanging plant floor data to cloud services, for example, AI, machine learning, or storage in data lakes for further analysis, we need to make sure that those services are hosted in virtual private clouds, isolated from the rest of the world.
Thank you so much for spending some time with our panel today. We hope you learned something. We hope you enjoyed watching it as much as we enjoyed making it. If you or your organization require services to evaluate your infrastructure for remote access to your industrial networks, please contact us on LinkedIn or at our website, www.wmeng.com. From me and all of the employee owners at Wonderlic Malik, we hope you choose to follow us on LinkedIn and subscribe to us on YouTube so you get notified of more of these great videos. Thanks and have a good day.